Greetings and salutations. Unfortunately for you, I'm back with another video. I actually have my voice back this week, so we're all cool. If you know me a little bit in my personal life, you know that one of the subjects I like to read up along and watch documentaries on stuff like that is expeditions. Um, I find them quite fascinating. I'm especially partial to Antarctic expeditions from the early 20th century. I just always found uh, just the danger but the pursuit of knowledge to be quite interesting to me. It was truly a different time in human history with different kind of priorities, let's say. It was always a human tragedy when people would die during these kind of expeditions, but they all kind of agreed to the risks because it was seen as this pursuit of knowledge and stuff like that. So when we get down to gaming, right? It's one of the reasons why I like overland travel and overland expeditions because I find it fascinating. I'm never going to climb Mount Everest. I'm never going to explore Antarctica. I like the skills. I like the personal, practical knowledge of what it takes to do such a thing. I like the physical fitness and endurance that is required to do such a thing. And of course, the great equalizer, I also lack the funds, which is why a lot of people try to go for sponsorships and stuff like that. But it's one of those things that when I do my games and I build my worlds and stuff like that, I'm a big fan of putting things for players like treasure, magical items, weapons, etc., in these settings without the need of a dungeon. Usually, the overland exploration is enough for the trek, and of course, the wildlife that you would find within your books to use within your bestiaries would obviously add another level of danger. But oftentimes, I find something like, well, when we're talking about a mountain, uh, while yeah, you could throw like a yeti or something like that in there, and that's totally fine and understandable. You don't exactly need to because there are mechanics in play, but you can make the trek itself dangerous, right? So instead of focusing so much on like a monster to use, focus on something more like think of it like a giant trap or a giant trick. If you're running 1E, because 1E had tricks and traps. Uh, the hazard of it's a very simple concept because one of the things that I mentioned Everest earlier, but honestly, the mountain that really kind of takes most of my interest, well, there's two of them, and it's because they have higher death ratios than Everest ever has, and that's K2 and Annapurna, and it's because I think the ratio for K2 used to be for every four people that summited, one person died. And Annapurna has, while it doesn't have such a large flat value for how many people have died, it's the amount of, it's the percentage in comparison to the people who even tried because many people would abort their expeditions just because of how dangerous it was to try to summit Annapurna. So you could use that kind of process, right? That kind of thought process to put into your games. Underwater exploration is also another one. That's a dangerous one, and there are divers that end up losing their lives when they go after the fallen diver that they're seeking to recover their body for the family above the surface. Uh, So, and out of respect, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, but for the respect for the dead, especially when I'm talking about a game, I find it a little distasteful to kind of use those particular examples, especially as recent as they are, to prove my point. But, just saying that with within a certain depth, it becomes uninhabitable, and that's same with mountains. At a certain height, it becomes uninhabitable. The death zone is a real thing. Right around 26,000 feet or 8,000 meters, the oxygen level becomes so horrible that your brain will actually start to swell within your head because there's not enough oxygen and you're breathing 4 times as hard. And likewise, when you keep diving down, all that pressure upon your lungs, that it's so different than what we know on the surface. So you could come up with that kind of idea for a particular adventure without really needing to have to rely on a bestiary. Um, I know a lot of people will be like, "Well, what about experience and stuff like that?" Look, this is one of the reasons I'm a big fan of treasure as experience, but uh, and I would say at this point, um, if you're only awarding experience based off of monsters killed, you either need to go to gold as experience, or you need to like come up with some kind of idea for like milestone leveling or something like that. Which is one of the few times that I will ever, and even then, I think gold as experience is superior to milestone leveling myself. But be that as it may, um, even something like this is where traveling the plains would be dangerous, where a bestiary would be handy. Um, Not just in terms of monsters, but wildlife. There are many people every year there that are killed by deer, not just on the highways. You hear it time and time again that the number one animal that kills more people every year in North America is deer. And while yes, it is true that it is a lot of times because of automobile accidents, there are plenty of people, hundreds, if not thousands of people who die every year because of a territorial buck that the person in question either stumbled upon a mating situation, or they stumbled into the territory of a very angry, very hormonal buck. So there you go. Um, So, like, you don't even really need to rely on a monster. You could just use a straight up animal, a very mundane animal. Is it the most exciting thing in the world? Well, not if you're not going to narrate it right. If you narrate it right, you can make it like it's just like if I said, "Well, you climb the mountain and okay, uh, uh, you, you slipped off a rock." You need to put more drama behind it. You need to put more narration behind it. I think a lot of the problems with a lot of people saying that this is too mundane or too boring is simply because the delivery um, of of the situation, and this is why I do think, in terms of narration, that it is your job as a game master to be a storyteller, for lack of a better term, because you need to paint the picture. You need to make that situation seem more perilous. Like it seems like if I said, "Oh, you slipped off the rock," in their mind they didn't slip off the rock. It was a bad dice roll. Whereas, okay, you're crossing the sledge, and as you are going one by one across the ledge, you start to hear some crumbling. And while you are all trying to determine the source, the location upon this narrow, perilous ridge, so and so, we'll call him for the sake of this. We'll call him John for the sake of brevity. John, you start to feel your weight suddenly shift to one side of your body, and you are alarmed when suddenly that particular foot now reaches to nothing but the abyss below. So there you go. But I've talked for 10 minutes now. I feel like I've made my point. So, as always, guys, take care. God bless. See you on the other side. What are your thoughts?